Hello everybody, I'm Julia, aka Chef J Nugg, and I'm here today with High Times Magazine, and I am so grateful to be here today to be talking about two things that I love, food and weed. To be teaching you guys how to make a cannabis infused French toast with a berry compote. So the reason I chose this recipe was to allow you guys to use what you have in your kitchen already. So all the ingredients hopefully you have on hand and won't require you to go out to the market. So happy 420, and if you haven't already, light the joint, get the blunt, get the bong, whatever herbal remedy of your choice, and sit back and come on this food journey with me, and hopefully by the end of it we can learn a little bit of something. So first things first, before you do anything, when you get into the kitchen, make sure your space is clean. Everything is about set and setting. So clean up the space, light a joint, get a little sound bowl moment. Or maybe you want to light some sage, some Palo Santo. You know, you just want to set the vibes. So on our menu today, it's going to be a can of butter infused French toast with a berry compote. So I'm going to walk you through how to make a homemade can of butter from scratch and then infuse it into a delicious French toast, and then we're going to take it up a notch and make a berry compote. So, namaste. So today we're going to be doing a can of butter. So the great thing about a can of butter is that you can use it to basically put in anything that requires butter. So you can do it on savory dishes, on vegetables, on a piece of toast. Today we're going to do the French toast infusion. And also, if there's any vegans, plant-based out there, or you're just sensitive to dairy, no worries. You can do coconut oil or any other type of really good oil. So avocado oil, olive oil, anything of your choice. So when doing a can of butter, it's important that we're getting the THC out of the buds. So this is the essence, right? This is the thing that's going to create the euphoria, have that really good feeling in our bodies, that psychoactive experience. So in order to do this, it needs to be converted through a chemical reaction, and so you do this through adding heat. So when we heat the bud, it goes from THCA to THC. So you simply start by breaking up your weed like you're rolling a joint, nothing too thin. So you put it out on a piece of parchment paper and a sheet pan that I have here, and you're going to set your oven to 235 degrees and cook around 60 to 90 minutes. So you want to keep checking on the weed because some old drier weed is going to cook really quickly, and the more moist, dank weed is going to take a little bit of longer, and you want to slow cook it. You don't want to just hurry up and heat it up. So once your herb is nice and toasty, you pull it out of the oven, and then you're going to take your handy dandy grinder and grind it up into fine modules. So we have this beautiful fine cannabis right here that's been decarbed. All the THC is ready to give you that experience you want to put in your food. And what kind of bud do you ask? Well, you can use any type of herb that you want. You can do a blend of CBD, you can do THC. I don't know much about weed. Just whatever weed you want, okay? You can do, so the recipe calls for about 10 grams per 1 cup of butter, or whatever oil you're going to be using, whether that's coconut oil, your avocado oil. So it's 10 grams per 1 cup of oil. So get yourself a good pot. You can use a stock pot, anything that you have in your kitchen. This personally, I love this pot so much. It's a Dutch oven, and it gets very hot because it's cast iron on the inside, and you can also put it inside of your oven and bake things that way. So I personally love this pot. If you can make a good investment, highly recommend. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your butter, 1 cup of butter, put it in your pot, melt it down. So the point of decarbing the weed is you want to suck out all of that THC. It's like an infusion. So you're sucking out the flavors from the herb, and you just want to have it on a low simmer. So this isn't something that's very quick. It's something that's nice and slow. So you're going to be adding 2 cups of water to your 1 cup of butter mixture. And the reason why we're adding the water to this is so that it strains out the chlorophyll, so that if the more water that you add, it'll take out the green color. So if you want more green weed, less water. If you want less green butter, then more water. So you can continue to add it, and you're going to take a look at it as it's simmering. A slow simmer. You don't want it to be boiling, but once it starts getting bubbly on the edges, that's when you know it's ready to turn off the heat and then let it cool for a while before you strain it. So once your butter has finally cooled, you're going to get a mason jar or a glass bowl, whatever you can have your butter in. You can either use a sift, because it's very fine, because you want to strain out the herb. So you want to make sure that it's not going into the butter. You can also use, if you have at home, a cheesecloth. So you can put your infusion in here and let it slowly come out. And you don't squeeze it like this, because you don't want to push out any of the weed fragments. Okay, French toast. Who doesn't love French toast? It's a classic. It's one of my favorites that I grew up on. So the basics to any really delicious French toast is some good bread, or any bread that you guys have in your pantry right now, some nice eggs. So think about 2 eggs per person, and a little bit of milk. I'm using almond milk today to create a nice creamy thickness, and some spices. So that is the basis. That's all you need. If you have that at home right now, you can make this. So you want to crack the eggs on a flat surface. So you got the eggs in the dish, and then you're going to have about, for every 6 eggs, 3/4 cups. So you just want to create a consistency with your base for the French toast that has a more thick, creamier texture. So I'm using almond milk today, which is my preferred milk. You can use oat milk, you can use hemp milk, you can even use regular milk, or even heavy cream, if you want to go for it. So what I have here is nutmeg, which is delicious. If you haven't messed with nutmeg, I highly, highly recommend it, which is a really warming, nourishing, grounding spice, but a little bit goes a long way, so just be mindful of how much nutmeg you're adding. And it's about 1 teaspoon for this recipe, and I have 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. So I personally love cinnamon, so you can even have a heavy hand with that if you please, and a good pinch of some salt. So I'm adding some vanilla to the base. So we have the eggs, the milk of choice, your spices, a little bit of salt, and now if you have this at home, if not, don't fret. You can still make this without it, but if you have some, I would say 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So I hope you guys are getting properly stoned out there. Now is where the love and the magic goes in. So you want to take your whisk, or a fork if you don't have this, totally cool, and just whisk it together. So while you're whisking, this is where you're putting all the love, you're infusing it, that good, this amazing French toast. So for me, I love bread so much. This bread is from a local bakery over here named Superba, and it is a fresh sourdough loaf. However, you can use whatever you have on hand. Brioche is a wonderful alternative. You can even use a challah bread. Okay, yes, look at this. It's amazing. So with the bread, just some geeking out here. Having a sourdough loaf, like the bigger these air bubbles are, the better. It's where all the gases are inside of the bread, so that gives its tangy flavor. And also like checking out your crust here and just looking at like the crust depth, the crunchiness, so you can totally geek out on some really good bread. But of course, use whatever you have, and yeah, we're gonna get soaking. So you're gonna cut your slices about 3/4 of an inch thick. And then you wanna work out too, because it's like a workout to make bread. Okay, so we have our sourdough. You're gonna, whoever you're cooking for, if it's you, your friends, your family members, however many slices that you're gonna need or you want to eat. Now that you have your delicious bread slices, you are going to lay them down into your batter for about 5, depending on your bread, right? So 5 to 10 minutes on each side. So it's gonna soak up all of that egg, cinnamon, nutmeg deliciousness and the vanilla flavors, and it's gonna marinate your bread essentially. So once you do that, and you want to double check, so depending on your bread, you want it to be saturated but not soggy. Okay, so if it's like breaking apart and like that's not what you want. You want it to be like smushy and soggy and just filled with the good stuff. While your bread is soaking in that beautiful base that you made with the eggs and the milk and the spices, you are going to make your berry compote. Berry compote is essentially a fancy way of saying muddled fruit mixed with heat and some juice. So it's a beautiful way to spice things up, elevate your dish, and you can also use it to pour over ice cream if you have it on hand. You can put it inside of like some yogurt. So I'm going to give you a very healthy, clean version, so you can use if you have any fruits in your fridge. I happen to have some strawberries and raspberries, so that's what I'm going to be using. So when you have your berry compote, it has a nice tangy flavor to it, so it's going to offset and help to balance out that very savory, sweet, warming French toast. So this really does take it up another level and is creating more of an umami. Okay, so you take your berries. So I did about 1 cup and I chopped them up smaller pieces. It's 1 clam of your raspberries. You'll add your 3 tablespoons of orange juice. If you have other juice, you can use that as well. So it's really just to start crystallizing and getting that sugars and adding the heat to it, so it pulls out this nice caramelization that's happening with the fruit naturally. Then you're going to squeeze in about half of a lemon. Squeeze it all over your pants. Okay. And then if you want to get fancy, you can just zest her up. Great. So you take this saucepan and you just have it until it starts bubbling, boiling, and you're stirring it with your wooden spoon, and you're just going to keep on mashing it down and then let it simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes and let it cool, and voila!
So good and tasty.
Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you had an amazing time on this food journey. Got a little bit of canna butter out of it. I'll leave it in the fridge. You can do it overnight and just empty out the water and drain it out the next morning. Put it in a seal-tight container, and you can have it for a couple weeks, just dipping into it, adding it to any of your favorite recipes or meals. Either way, thank you so much, and you can find me at jnugg on Instagram. Thank you High Times Magazine for having me, and I'll see you next time. Okay.